Mm. Yeah. Porto. Well, I wish I was. The thing is that this is.
All right, we are back here. Very happy for our newest episode featuring Flavio Bastos. He's a really good friend of mine, and not only that, he's a very inspirational figure that is gonna give us some really interesting ideas and feelings about how to self-manage and how to do very, very powerful projects. He studied in the Universidad Central de Venezuela, communication, and he has been, when I asked him for some description, he just wrote me one word: self-taught. So I'm going to respect his desire to underline that, and I'm just going to tell you that he has gone from being a person who was employed to be a person who set up several companies, and nowadays is totally independent and has produced projects like viabam.com, Guiajando.com, and FlavioAmiel.com, and he's a really powerful mind, and I'm really happy to have you here, bro. So here we are. So I was saying that you look like you're in Japan, man. Where are
Thank
you
you,
now?
brother. Yeah, I wish I was. I'm in Portugal right now. Almost summer,
Yeah.
without even knowing. Yeah, pretty much. Missing
Yeah, you were
missing
really
the weather.
you were really shocked by Japan, right? If I'm not mistaken, when you went there.
Yeah, well, this is something that is weird because whenever when I was a kid, there was always like people talking about Japan and wow, Japan, and I was like, who cares? It's just like it's there, and it might be interesting or not, of course, but it's the same as other cultures. I was always like, it's just another culture, right? I wasn't. I think most people is like, wow,
Yeah.
you went to Japan,
Yeah.
or I want to go to Japan, and I didn't have that at all until I went there.
And you're super shocked, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love it there. It's an amazing place. I would like to spend a lot of time there, but I wouldn't live there because it's it's just so different that
Yes.
you need another life. You need another life to properly understand it.
Yeah, sorry, carry on, carry on.
Yeah. So yeah, basically that. But I was, I'm in love. It's an amazing place. It's an amazing place. But I always have this thing, like the Western thing with versus Asia, where I don't know. I think in the Western we adore Asia for religion reasons, and yoga and Zen meditation and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, we are always looking for that answer there, but we have it here.
Yes.
Because we have the Greeks,
Yes.
Greeks and the philosophers,
Yes.
and this is human nature. Like if you take like Buddhism, right?
Yeah.
And you see the core, like the fundamental of Buddhism, and you see the core of Seneca and Stoicism. It's just at the core, it's the same thing. It's like you need to be happy with what you have.
Yeah.
You don't need to go, and it's the same. Like it's just the same. It's the core thing.
And also,
And
I have a. Well, let me not interrupt you there. Carry on. It's hard sometimes on the distance. Please, when you finish your idea, I come in.
yeah, no, basically that. I just wanted to introduce that idea because it's something that we always talk about
Yes.
this kind of stuff, and
I was recently. I mean, well, I have said we haven't spoken for years, and I have said repeatedly in many conversations that if people will, of my old friends, will approach to me and understand what are my core values nowadays, there will be a lot of surprises. And in total synchronicity with what you're saying, one of the things that is the characteristics of my actual worldview is a profound respect for the West and its ideas first, and especially for Christianity. I mean, we take this so much for granted, and we have been trashing this for the last 50, 60 years. And we have forgotten that, I think, this is what put men on the moon and robots in Mars, I mean, we take for granted that we get on a lift or on a elevator, and the person next to us will just not murder us, or something like that. And we take for granted all this set of core values that form a part of our lives, and we forget that things were not always like that. and because we have that spiritual gap in the West, I think people look to the East like, oh, look at them, they're so like enlightened and full of inner peace, and they have forgotten that I mean, with all the negative consequences that it may have, something like an organized religion or something like that, there's also this other super positive side that we just tend to just trash as if it doesn't exist. And not only that, I mean, just I remember my parents being super lefty and kind of not being adherent to any religion. They took me to Europe when I was 15 and took me to all these cathedrals, and I was just wondering, like, why are we doing this? I mean, if we're not religious. And the thing is that we built these magnificent structures that they just populated Europe, and they were projects that were hundreds of years long. I mean, nowadays it's impossible even to plan a 10-year project, and these projects were 200, 300 years out to the future, and people went and made them, and made them for a reason, and those that heritage that is there is just so meaningful and rich, and it's very fashionable on the West to just admire the East for their spirituality, and forget that when we combine Athens and Jerusalem, meaning the Judeo-Christian background, and the reason that came from Greece, we produce the most advanced epoch in the history of humanity, and not only the most advanced epoch, the most fair epoch in the history of humanity. People take this for granted so much. Like, I mean, nowadays, as I was saying, you enter to an elevator and you're sure that nobody's gonna eat you, and also you're a woman and you know that you're gonna get some respect. So it's very interesting to hear this from you, because I'm very happy to see that this is not only a perception that I hold close to me. That there is this lust for spirituality on the West that people tend to cover with the East. And we could perhaps find it in our own house. And I tell you this, since I moved to Russia, it's been, firstly, many things have happened. And one of the main things that I felt when I left Europe was leaving this sort of, when there is a bomb and it explodes, and there is the expansion wave of the bomb, like, and when I arrived to Russia, it's very contradictory and very opposite to what I was expecting it was going to happen. I felt like, oh, I left Europe. It felt like I had this expansion wave of the explosion following me, and like things were just, in terms of how it all feels there, a little bit like, oh, everything is it's just a feeling of a tourist, right? I don't live there, but I had this feeling of like, oh, there is something awkward here. It's like it's put together, but it's kind of falling apart at the same time, and many people don't want to be together, and people are together, and then there is the moral side of it. I mean, which is that, I mean, I was always shocked about how you would sit down with a friend and they would tell you how much you had fun cheating on his wife or something, and you're just like, okay, fine, like, great. I mean, good for you. I mean, I'm not a moralist or something. I just, and I'm not a sage or something, but I'm putting all of this kind of confusion in the expansion wave of the explosion that I'm telling you. And then you land in Russia, and for good and for bad, things here are way much more vertically organized and and more attached to some sort of rock. There's not so much, and I'm not talking about freedoms here. I'm talking about what is the truth. The truth, well, this is Russia, and Russia will not fall apart. So then you don't have something like Euroscepticism, right? Like, there's a lot of Russia skepticism in here too, but it's so different. It's so condensed and compact and tightly united. And what's really amazing, man, because I'm taking here the lead on the conversation, because one of the reasons why I made this podcast is because I wanted to project Russia outwards, and I'm using you as a vehicle to do that. One of the things that shocked me the most of Russia is that, if you stand... I once made a flight from Moscow to Omsk, when I was working with a big artist here. I made one flight from Moscow to Omsk, and that flight is like flying from Moscow to London and pass London and land 200 kilometers after London in the middle of the ocean. Okay, so imagine from Moscow to there. There's just full of Russian cities, right? And then I took another flight from there to Vladivostok, it would be like taking a flight from that place in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and flying to New York. So all of that space is Russian cities. And so you have to imagine that's Russian trains, Russian highways, I mean, all organized by the same state. And what I want to say here is how homogeneous it all feels. It's like you almost don't feel a change in the accent. It's like you kind of we're always obviously in the same country. And so that happens the same with the culture and the part of spirituality here, which, I mean, there's a lot of anti-religious feeling here, of course, and that's okay. But in my case, this helped me to kind of ground me and gave me a better center. That would be a topic of a whole another episode of this podcast because I'm actually looking for a priest or something to have a conversation as well, because what's happening here is really profound. But well, going out of religion and focusing us back into the purpose of this. Tell me a bit about your story, because I find it really fascinating. Like, I think that you're a person who is self-made, and that's always good to share with people. How did this happen?
I wish I could say that I was self-made, but I'm standing on the shoulder of giants, right?
Yes.
But I know what you mean, because I'm always talking about being self-taught, and get a book, just read something, ask someone, etc. So one of the things, my story goes back 40 years ago, because I'm 40 now.
Yes.
I was born in Venezuela. My grandfather was Greek. From my mom's side.
Greek?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah. And I was born there, and I live, in Maracaibo, which is a very, very hot city or hot place. My grandfather, he loved it there. I don't know why he felt very and he's like, what? Maracuchas and Greek has nothing to do. But they do. And at the same time, my father was Portuguese. And so I was raised in this, kind of weird thing, because my father was Portuguese, but he was like super Venezuelan. Mm-hmm. And my Greek family was also like super Venezuelan. But at the same time, you're in a bubble. Even you don't realize that until later in life. So I guess that kind of put me. I was kind of a shy guy, a shy child, and I was like very quiet. I just didn't want to, Also, my Greek family was super loud.
Like Greeks tend to be.
Exactly, and I was like, I don't like this. So I kind of really didn't fit into that scene, into that culture, and in Venezuela it's the same. So very loud, very festive,
and in Maracaibo,
and I tried. Yeah, and I was trying to, I don't know, maybe as a shy guy and everything, I just was like looking for my own things. I was always reading or things like that. I used to grab from my grandfather's library bookshelf, dinosaurs, ovni stuff, whatever magazine, whatever, got into my hand, I was going to read it. And at some point, I just realized that this was a very good way to learn stuff. Because at some point, I was given a book about, kind of chemical experiments that you can do at your home. And you have like this kind of candle that you put the candle and then you put a candle with water in a plate, and you turn it up, you light it, and then you put a glass on top of it, and then the glass fills up with all the water because of the oxygen.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. So I was like I didn't need anyone to make this stuff. I just read it and I did it. And I don't know, I just started being very interested in that kind of stuff. Like I can basically learn stuff by reading or, and then the internet came and that amplified everything.
If I may make a micro pause here, I was thinking, what would be the equivalent of your grandfather's library nowadays? I mean, your browser history, in the sense that, you see, this was an intimate moment between you and your grandfather's knowledge that didn't have a mediation between you and your grandfather. But nowadays, we kind of don't have physical libraries, so I'm just wondering. Well, anyways, it's not even a question. It's just I'm saying, interesting. Maybe we got to start piling books there so our kids can explore our intellect without having to talk to us, right? Because they may be intimidated or something. Anyways, sorry. Just a super segue.
No, but you have the internet, right? So you can put your...
That's like all grandfathers, yes, all grandfathers' libraries in one, right?
Exactly. But, I mean, like, basically, you can put everything you want. Like, I know what you mean. You're talking about our children, right?
Exactly.
Like, what would be the equivalent for them? And this is something that I've been thinking about. I'm wondering because my daughter is about to enter that age where she just goes and reads whatever is there. That is not from her bookshelf. And I was just talking about that like 3 days ago. And I was like, well, I'm going to start just buying the thing that I already know that it could be cool for her, and just put it there and see what happens.
Exactly.
In 2 or 3 years, because she's 9 now, and maybe,
So retaking you back to where you were in this situation when you find that you could taught yourself your own.
Yeah. So basically, and then, the internet came, and that was like, boom, like just, it was very interesting. So I used to live in Maracaibo. I used to, I have this, and I forget about this stuff, and I just start to remember at some point. But back in the days, I used to go by bicycle in the city in Maracaibo, and that was like, I mean, I don't know, any of my friends from there, they never bike across the city, but I use it as a medium of transport, and this is weird in Venezuela.
Yeah.
At least for my, for the kind of people and family I had, that you are supposed to be in kind of a bubble where, be careful and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't have that. I just grabbed my bike, go from my grandfather's home to my place, or to a friend, or just to Square or whatever. And this was super weird, but I didn't realize about it. I'm just realizing that, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm like, well, that's different. Like, I don't know anyone that has done it back in the days. So, yeah. So, well, basically, I always believe in that. And whenever I saw that there was some sort of independence to be made, I wanted to take it. So, especially when you are young, when you're a teenager, that you are sort of trying to be controlled. You want your own thing. And, so I don't know, there's some sort of chip in my head that tells me you can learn. If you want to do it, you can do it. And you don't need anyone. I mean, you need knowledge. You need information. But you also need, to observe. But so there is like, it's a chemistry between what you want to do and really wanting to do it, and the books and the information. I was reading the other day I'm reading the Leonardo da Vinci biography. I know nothing about da Vinci.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, this is an interesting guy. This is a well-written book. I'm going to start reading. I just got reading it yesterday. And the book is based on notes of all the notes that da Vinci left. So he left around 7,000 notes, okay? And, paper was very expensive at the moment. So he took every inch of the paper and put like weird things together. And the author of the book, he says that it was so amazing, not only seeing like how he draws stuff, but also that he was always making to-do lists, and he has a lot of to-do lists being with asking someone how to make X. How do you measure the diameter of the sun, and things like that. So he was well connected, right?
Right.
And he wanted to learn things to apply it to his art, but he needed that information. And even though Gutenberg already, printed the Bible, there wasn't.
Of course.
There was a lot of information. This is the Renaissance, okay?
Yes.
So there's like, everything is booming. But he wanted to go because he has this maxim of going directly to the source, right?
Yeah.
So he was always trying to get to the source of the information. And with the internet, we can just go to the source all the time with whoever we want. And that was like a ridiculous inspiration for me to make things happen.
I want to bring two things to this part of the conversation. I recently finished reading the Divine Comedy, and also a wonderful course I extremely recommend it to anybody interested from Yale University. It's a course about the Divine Comedy. It's for free on YouTube, but it's just gonna open your eyes about how well connected, way much more connected was the 14th century than what we imagined. I mean, it was there are references in the Divine Comedy to English poetry. I mean, I was never expecting these books to be moving around Europe in that epoch. I was totally ignorant about that, and I was really shocked. And by the way, I mean, if anybody has the chance to and hasn't read the Divine Comedy, it's a masterpiece. It's incredible. And the other thing I wanted to, I'm moving from this little Renaissance slash middle. Sorry, well, actually, I just made a very brutal historical, mishmash, because I mean, I went way back. I mean, I'm talking about the Middle Ages, right? You're talking a little bit more further, but I think antiquity is way different than what we think, and we don't tend to communicate so much with antiquity so well. And this leads me to ask you a question. I was once standing in front of the tomb of Galileo Galilei with my dad, and I asked him, "Do you think that there are minds as big as that one nowadays?" And he looked at me quickly and said, "Absolutely not." And I smiled in the way you smiled when you don't agree with somebody, but you just don't want to say anything because you respect the person. So what do you think about that when you read this biography? It's a hard one.
Well, I think is one of the things that globalism has brought to us is a uniform blanket for all of us, right? So we live in this ecosystem where you hear a lot of echo of, of the same minds all the time. And, this doesn't align with my values. And it's very easy to just be in your bubble. It's very easy.
Yes.
Like you don't need, if you don't want to be exposed to something, it's very easy to just not be there. But back in the days, we don't need to go a lot further. Back in the past, we needed to follow the norms. We needed to just, mix with different type of people, etc. And I think that Because right now our mind is being driven by our own mind, right? And when you enter some sort of obsession or theme in what you want to do, it's just you just go there and focus, follow this guy and keep going. But when you see minds like Da Vinci, like he was interested in so many areas, and it's like we cannot be that.
Yeah.
We are taught to be specialized. We are being taught to just know about one thing. That's just one. Like even in business, you cannot have multiple business. You are like, what you're going to do is search. What you're going to do is social media. There's no, I don't know. There's no like, I'm an artisan and I want to do like paint and literature, and I also like physics or things like that. There's no like, we don't have that. So it's not that I agree with that, and this also has allowed us to, to learn a lot about one thing, and this is super important. But this, I think, is we are kind of in a prison somewhat, because we really need to, focus on one thing, make our life work, and then not fuck it up and not say the wrong thing. Like now that everything is super amplified,
it's so crazy, man.
We can always, like, if I don't know what the story of Galileo, but when he said that the Earth wasn't flat, it's a very hard statement. Like
It was super non-PC back then, right?
but probably that was like a slow process. Like right now, look, there's people saying that the Earth is flat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they can live in their own tribe, but they are not going to communicate. And from one side, we're going to ridicule them and say like, you're just saying nonsense, right? And on the other hand, they will always be in their bubble and not try to find another way to look at it, because they became a tribe, and with very tribal sentiments. They won't try to challenge you in a way that is really interesting.
It's very interesting that, with the word globalism, one expects exactly what the word says. Some sort of boundless open space, but it has produced this homogeneous space. But it's interesting. In this homogeneous space, then there are these small clusters that with echo chambers where people stay inside. Do you feel that the internet? Well, this is an obvious question. I just want to hear how do you piece this in your own mind. Do you remember that ancient time of the internet, where the internet was like vectors flowing in every direction? How would you describe this process to your daughter, for example, when she grows up and it's like the internet used to be this and the internet is now that? Do you think that?
Well, I think it's in essence the same thing. I don't think it's very. Of course, it's not that professional. It was more like an artisan work in the past. One of the first things that I self-taught myself was to write HTML syntax, right?
Yes.
And it was like my family didn't have, like I have a computer, right? But my family didn't have money to buy me a CD-ROM, right? And with a CD-ROM, I could basically have a CD, put it there, install software called Front Page, and with that software, start creating websites in a simpler manner. But I didn't have any of that. So I started looking at the source of the codes of the websites, and I just started learning how to make it. And that was one of the first things that I did all on my own, and I'm proud of that, because that led me to my first job in a startup. But it was basically me learning, just seeing the code, learning how to write it and do it. And back in the days, it was almost the same. Like you have the same cluster. The reality is that the mind, internet is like the extension of your mind. It's not something that is going to. It keeps being intrinsic. It's all the time. It's like you're going to direct your attention to what you want, right?
Yeah.
Unless someone hack it, but yeah, basically, it's the same. Like it's the same as always. Like it's just the extension of your mind, right? And you just need to go to explore. For example, now I started drawing like maybe 3 months ago. Started like drawing. I never done it ever in my life, like seriously. And I just starting to learn a little bit, and it's super cool because I'm just learning the fundamentals of drawing. But when you see the teachers, they are all saying the same. They are just teaching you the fundamentals, one with different angles than others, but it's basically the same. So I feel like I advanced my drawing career, like a year in 3 months. I mean, if I put it like in comparison to going to a place to learn to draw.
Yes.
Because I have the information in my place, I can just go there and start learning. And I don't know, that's what makes it interesting.
What do you think that stops people from taking that step? I mean, it's not like I'm asking you to draw the Bible of how to self-motivate yourself, but imagine that you're sitting with a friend and it's like, man, I'm telling you my own personal case. Yeah, well.
No, it's not. Oh, shit.
No, there it is. That's great.
This is a nice, super awesome. And I never drew any like this. And I'm like doing this and I'm like super excited.
I haven't forgotten what the question was. I want to make a really quick sentence here before I go to that question. I will talk a lot about Carl Jung forever because Carl Jung changed my mind and my life for good. And I believe something that I obtained from him. You don't choose your interests; they choose you. And most likely this is your future self pulling you towards it. But that's another story. I just wanted to say that. Now I'll go back. Imagine that you're talking with me and we're having a beer and I'm going to tell you a fact. I always wanted to learn jiu-jitsu. And I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu. Like it's going to happen. But I never had the mindset to get me out of my system and go and do it. Is there something that you can tell to somebody to help them to break that ice? Perhaps it's cliched, but I don't know.
Well, I think motivation is intrinsic, right? Like it just comes from within. It just doesn't come from outside. But I just say like go for it. Like whenever you feel like there's something out there, just don't think what will people say.
Yes.
Don't. But especially because thinking about what people say, the reality is just a procrastination button. It's just like, oh, I don't want, like, I want to do it, but no, it's like a procrastination thing because at the end, it doesn't really matter. Okay. Most people.
What do you mean it doesn't really matter? Like, it doesn't really matter that you do it or not, or?
It doesn't really matter that what other people think.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's difficult, right? Like this is something because it's ingrained in our brain.
Yes.
It's part of our DNA. It's just like you don't break the tribe. You don't do that.
Yes.
But it's a very different place now, and I don't know if you ever read a blog called "Wait, But Why."
No.
Oh, you have to see it.
I will.
there's one post that is called like I don't remember the title, but it's something in that goes like, we are always carrying this mammoth with us, all right? And the mammoth is with us always, all the time.
Yes.
And it's basically about your, this thing that is in our DNA that doesn't serve any purpose right now. But we just have it. And we need to, be aware of it all the time. And try to break.
It really took me. I'm coming out of this now, only now. I don't know if you have noticed that all of a sudden I appeared online again after I disappeared for so many years, and
sure.
And it hit me, and actually I appeared so much that I decided to start recording me talking with friends. I mean, it's like the ice was broken, and what made me break this ice was remembering posting some commentary online and thinking, I'm gonna bother my friends. I mean, the people who follow me are gonna be bothered by this content. I mean, by this amount of content that I'm putting. I'm putting out too much content at the same time, so I'm gonna bother them. And when I was, hitting the click button to cancel, I realized how absurd it was to think like that. I mean, there is an ignore button, right? I mean, so people, if they are bothered by it, they can ignore me. But I guess what's behind that feeling is not to want to hit the ignore button. But then for this, you just have to carry on and put your weight on the table and say, hey, man, like, it's either this or silence. And man, I might as well rather express myself than to bother somebody offline, especially online. I mean, it's very funny. I mean, and I consider myself not a lazy mind, but this is so heavy on all of us, this kind of force of what will the others think, that I was myself consumed by it until a few weeks ago. And I think that's one of the effects of the quarantine is going to, I think it's a polar thing. I mean, in general, when things are happening in your life, the outcome most likely is going to be catastrophic or beautiful, and it just depends on where you're standing, and that depends on every single decision that you made before that moment. And the quarantine is either catastrophic or beautiful, and what has happened is worth. I mean, this is the event of our generation. This is our Second World War kind of thing. Never in the history of humanity we have been through something like this, and the outcome, in my case, I mean, for me personally, was one of the best months of my life. I mean, that's how it has been in my microcosmos, and it produced this is a constant meditation flow, when the whole world stopped. And I felt, when a car stops, you keep your body keeps moving forwards, if a car stops very fast. And I felt like the whole world stopped, but my body kept moving forwards. And I kind of could look back into myself from that projection that was generated. And I could meditate about this kind of things. And it drove me to open myself up and to just stop this fear of what will the others say. But it's absolutely innate in our minds and in our bodies. And if somebody wants to learn more about this, and I recommend you this, I'm right now reading a book that I think it's foundational, and it's a really powerful work from a writer called Jonathan Haidt. And the book is called give me a second, it just escaped my mind because I'm stupid, so I'm just going to open the browser here. It's so amazing, man. I just like in the emotion of this meeting you again after years. The Righteous Mind, it's called.
I think I heard about it.
Man, this book, the book is called The Righteous Mind: How Good Intentions and Bad Ideas Are Setting Up a Generation for Failure. Excuse me. The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. Man, this book is really powerful, and it touches in a great deal the biological foundation of why we have this feeling of being afraid of. That's not the center of the book. This is a moral psychologist, and he's trying to piece together what's the source of morality. And man, it's so amazing, the argument. This is very interesting what I'm about to say, and it's connected. If you have a monkey who lives in captivity, and you throw him a plastic snake the monkey will recognize it as a snake, even though it has never seen a snake, ever. It would recognize it as a snake and it would be afraid of it because we have circuitry in our brains to detect this kind of things. So he roots morality in this circuitry. And so there is a circuitry inside of us who wants us to be able to form part of a group. And we just can't escape this. And that's why we are stopped. What's amazing is that these stops are individual development. I mean, like, why don't I start learning jiu-jitsu? Well, because maybe I'm afraid of what people will say when I go there and I look like a dumb ass making my first movements. Why didn't you learn to draw before? Something like that. And I guess that we answer the question in the end that in the recognition of the fact that you are afraid of being seen and judged, you find yourself stopped by your own mind in order to produce progress.
Yeah. And it's also like we are talking about different levels. But one of the things I wanted to comment is that I don't know how the next generation is going to be. But, we were born in between two eras.
Yes.
And we have the one that went before, and now we have this one. And probably when we see our kids a little bit obsessed about YouTube and, I want to be a YouTuber, like that's for, I will say a big percentage of the kids, they want to be YouTubers. Their heroes are people that are all day in the computer recording stuff online.
Yes.
All right. And we don't know what's going to be, but that's progress, probably because we as adults and coming from the other generation, we're going to say, but you cannot be doing that all day, every day, and that's what's going to be the breakthrough. They are going to say, why not?
Yes.
This is what I do and this is what I like to do. So fuck you. And probably that's what's going to happen. But yeah, it's like we were born in this moment between the two things. And that I think it's harder for us than it's going to be for the new generation. But the other thing is that I'm talking about the biologic thing. When our minds want to be entertained, right? We don't want boredom. But we also have the path of least resistance. So we have these two biologic things that are not a good mix in the internet era, because we want to be entertained and we have access to unlimited entertainment all the time, but we don't have these. I mean, we need to work on this proactively. If we don't do it, our lazy mind will just go to consume information.
Yes.
And that's what it's going to do forever. But this comes from our biologic part where it says that you need to, did you read Sapiens?
No, man. Many people have told me to read it. Yeah, I will. Yeah.
So basically, they say what make us progress was the gossip in the tribe. So the gossip was very important, was super important, because that way you knew who was a good person or a bad person, who did bad things, who to be careful with, who to invite to your place, all this stuff, right? Who is not going to kill you in the elevator.
Exactly.
Right? And, what is internet? When we, Instagram is just gossip.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's probably why I don't lean a lot into Instagram, but that's what people want. And this is like for the lazy mind, and not only the lazy, because it's not only about being lazy, it's about structure and a lot of things. I discuss this stuff a lot because whenever I hear internet is just a tool, I'm like, I hate that idea, because
of course.
Everyone says it, and I think it needs structure. It just look. It's like heroin, okay? So if you really need to have to watch what you do there. You need to measure your time, what you're doing.
Yes.
Because you can enter in a really shallow place if you just don't use it with your head.
Going back to Carl Jung, it's really important. Firstly, I mean, I think that the work of Carl Jung is more relevant than ever right now, and it's a really important message that I send out to everybody who might be interested, that it's really worth paying attention to, because I think it is obviously impossible for me to lay out what he's trying to say in this conversation, but I certainly understood that the best way to describe my personality is like a sledge that it's pulled by dogs. Like these Arctic sledges that are pulled by a lot of dogs. And within those dogs, there are so many they are very different in nature. And your ego personality is the one who is controlling those dogs. And we tend to see ourselves as a unity, but we really aren't. We are a collection of sub-personalities. And the internet takes control over us not because the internet takes control over us, it's because we fail to control that dog, that particular dog in that train, that starts pulling the sledge towards where you don't want to go. And I don't know how to sort that out because I will not be procrastinating, and I do procrastinate, but I do know that seeing that helped me a lot. And you know what helped me a lot? To establish a direct conversation with that subpersonality like I would be talking to you. And you know what's most important from Jungian theory is to not punish that personality. Because nobody acts well when you punish them. You need to have a negotiation and a conversation. It's like, okay, for example, I'm going to get out of the example of the internet. I realized that I was obsessed at pleasing everybody to a point that it was detrimental to me. And I was obsessed in making everybody happy. And so initially, before I discovered Jung, I was like crushing that part of myself. And then your reaction is something like violence towards the other, and it's negative. But what started happening is that, for example, I was once using my studio, and a person who is not in good terms with me needed to use the studio. And I felt the need of standing up and telling to this person, even though we're not in good terms, to tell to this person, you can use the studio now. And I was just like, but why am I doing that? This contradicts my goals, and this person and I are not in good terms. However, I reached to the conclusion that the most important question there was to ask to this part of my personality, what do you want? And I did it exactly like that. I asked to this part of my personality, okay, nice, Leo, what do you want? I want my adrenaline fix of feeling better because I helped the other, or feeling better because the other loves me more. Better to put it like that. And so I made a negotiation, and the negotiation was, okay, golden retriever, Leo, whatever we want to call. I gave them names. I mean, I started writing this in a journal. I started making a journal. I started giving names to these parts. I don't remember how I named that. I think I called him Tom for Tom Cruise, just joking. Because I see as a actor who wants to put this nice face. So I said, okay, Tom, look, let me finish this and then I'll please you. And since I started doing this, at least I'm in some sort of control of the process. And I think that it's important just to realize that part of you who wants to just go and dwell on Twitter for hours and not focus on anything productive needs to be negotiated with. And I think that you are great at that. And that's one of the main reasons why I brought you here, because ever since we met each other, I think I met you in the moment when you were kind of like separating from yourself and being able to see yourself from outside. Is that a good way to put it?
It was a new personality coming up. Basically, yeah.
And I think you have developed a certain set of mind techniques that keep you off the internet when you have to. Does this require any special effort from you, or is something that comes natural? Because I envy it.
No, I think I'm probably really bad at this because I'm so obsessed. I'm so obsessed with this that it's probably because I'm not good. So I've read a ton about this. I fear this. I think it's difficult. I think it's a vice. I think we all need to be aware of it. I think we need to take care of our kids with this. I mean, I think in the future, like just like having this mobile phone, it's like a cigarette. Okay,
Yes.
like I really see it like that. Like it's just because it's kind of and I worry because like most of the solutions I encounter or what people say we should be doing, the experts, is basically saying you need to take a break from distraction. So that's what they tell you. But you really, like, what you need is to take a break from production. It's not the other way around. It's not
And I
that
don't know
you
how to
need to
do this.
break. Right. No, no, no. And it's super complex.
Yeah,
And there's
yeah.
like, there are so many methods. Look, this is, well, I can tell you later this. But before I go there, I wanted to tell you because, Carl Jung, we were talking about this, and we were talking about we don't think in the Renaissance or whatever, it was that different. It wasn't that different. Like
Yeah.
the mind has always been the same. You wanted to be entertained. You never wanted to be bored. You wanted company. You wanted all this stuff, right? So Carl Jung, he started because he was also trying to beat Freud, right? He was trying to, be a contrarian of his ideas and say like, this is not the fixed thing. This is different. This is, and he started building a tower back in his
Yes.
house in
Yes. Yes.
Switzerland.
In Bollingham. Yeah.
Why was that? Because he just wanted to be not disturbed when he was there. Like he went there and just worked, right? Without any distraction. And this is what we need. This is what we need to do. We need to create this ritual where we enter work. And work is just work. And then, if you want to consume, but it's like the personality thing. You cannot say, no, I'm not going to, whatever. But it's that, like, the most important for me, I'm reading this book. He said the story of Carl Jung. It's called Deep Work.
Mm-hmm.
And he said basically you have to train your mind. Well, because the dangerous side of this stuff is that you train your mind to be distracted. And the more you train it to be distracted,
Fuck, it's so true. Yeah.
the more difficult it is to focus. But if you train more into focus, it's going to be really easy to focus. Okay?
Yes.
So it's basically, and back to that point where we are, taking a break from distraction. It's the other way around. We need to take a break from production, from focusing. That's what we should be doing. And one of the things they say is like the author says, is like, look, just put hours to your use of this stuff, right? And if cúmplelo. How you said?
Follow it. Just follow it.
Yeah, and follow
Have a schedule
your thing.
of internet use and follow it, something like that.
It's not the scale, but say like, okay, from 2 to 4, I'm just going to work and I'm not going to see the phone. And train your mind not to do it, right? You need to put your phone there, whatever, turn off the internet, make your own tower, like it's a digital tower in this case. But the more you train your brain to escape or be bored, like, we are very used to going to the loo with a magazine or paper, and now it's but you can go without it.
Yes. My wife is gonna love you for this. Because I always sit down like for 40 minutes or something, just like, and then going to the toilet ends up being the last thing that you do. I mean, it's just a way to escape.
Right. So look, the thing that worked for me are I have a time to end the internet thing, right? Every night at 8 p.m. unless I have something different. It's just out. The phone is over. So I have from 8 to around 9 or something to do other things in weekdays.
Mm-hmm.
And during the weekend with kids, it's also very good to take basically I say that is DD day, which is Domingos Desconectados or
Unplugged Sundays. Unplugged Sundays.
Yeah. So we're basically disconnect everything until 4 or 5 p.m. So
Great.
We have all the day to do other things. So we do these two things, and because it's a tribal thing where we plan to do stuff, because the thing is you cannot do it without planning to do something, because it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So you need to do, okay, like, look, on Sunday, I'm going to wake up, I'll make breakfast, then play whatever, Uno, whatever you want to play, go out for a run in the park, whatever. It doesn't really matter. You just need to plan it a little bit. It doesn't need to be like that, but, something. Yeah. So these are the things that I do, and they mostly work. They work mostly all the time.
Do you physically disconnect like the internet, or do you have the mental power to just leave it aside?
I wish I could just be connected, but now we have Netflix, right? And right, Netflix and whatever. And my wife loves seeing series and movies and stuff.
Yes.
I'm more of a book guy.
Yes.
And I will disconnect it, but I can't.
Yeah. I also think that, I mean...
But look, what I do is I leave the phone out of my reach.
Yeah. I'm about to buy myself because I openly come out of the closet and say that that dog of my sledge, it's at the moment, at least I'm aware of its existence, but at the moment it takes control over me. And for example, I have a big interview on this podcast. I'm very excited coming on Thursday. I will interview a Scottish scientist who is one of the proponents of this theory that I'm very enamored of the Younger Dryas cosmic impact hypothesis. And so and I have to read his book, and it's so hard for me just to, especially when I have the phone is my book and also the internet at the same time, because I don't have a Kindle or a device. I wish I would, but I just don't have the willpower just to not move around. And I see it with the eyes of because that personality is an addict. It's really an addict. It behaves like an addict. The other personality. And I'm so I've been just thinking, okay, well, listen, I think I need to treat this like a doctor. And just, for example, buy myself an alarm clock and leave the phone outside of the room. Have a device where I could read that it's offline or just has the capacity to read, because if not, it just takes over my life. Like I'm hoping to develop this focus, but I'm honest in the sense that I'm not, and I really think, here openly saying to the whole internet, I really think it affects my whole life. I really think it's one of the reasons why I have been less productive and powerful, and it's not the fault of the internet. That's where people fall into a major mistake. And perhaps you couldn't say that it's not the fault of anybody. It's just a problem that has to be solved, in my case.
Yeah, I'm really interested in knowing what's going to happen once this is really acknowledged as a vice, as something dangerous, as something that you need to control. I'm really interested on knowing what's going to happen, because, look, this is not just me talking. I read a lot about this, a lot. One of the scary things is that, for example, teenagers, when you get, teenager girls, the suicide rate in the U.S.,
yes,
at least, I don't know if there are studies there are other places, but is higher since the iPhone came on.
Of course.
And the reason, what we were talking about, gossip and sapiens, is that you can destroy, basically, you can destroy the reputation of any person with a picture,
Yes.
with Photoshop,
Yes.
with a false thing. And, in the teenage age, that your tribe is very important. And if someone just destroys your reputation, and you're not in a good place mentally,
Yes.
that could be really tough, really, really tough. And, we all been there. We all been teenagers. We all know. For boys, it's different than from girls, because boys are more physical,
Yeah.
whereas girls, it's not that they are not physical, but by biochemistry, they are more into these mental and social things. And it's dangerous, man. Like you need to take control.
And you know what's very funny? I have found myself when my parents come to visit me. This is transgenerational. I mean, my parents behave in a certain way as the 15-year-old child who has access to the internet and just gets consumed by it. When they come to Moscow to visit me, I share internet for them in the car. For example, I'm like, okay, guys, I'm gonna switch on the internet. And then I find myself driving around Moscow, and telling them like, well, look, and here on your left. And when I see they're like, and I I have jokingly like, okay, guys, internet time is over. It's off, because our parents too. I mean, nobody really knows how to handle this beast. And look, a great force behind the conquering of America was the establishment of plantations of sugar. And here I'm making a super parallelism in the sense that we go very far, like killing millions far to satisfy our addictions, and we really just don't know how this is going to play out. I was with the previous guest I had with Ilya Masaev. It's a Moscow music producer. We were saying that, well, if we survive the Second World War, I'm pretty sure we will survive Twitter. But now I don't know. I oscillate in between those two things. We really take for granted that the future is going to be better than now. And what just happened in front of our eyes is proof that we just don't know. It's still open. It's still open for the game. If I would have told you last year that this is going to happen, that we were going to find ourselves with, man, I read the statistics yesterday, 136 million jobs destroyed in India, 36 million jobs destroyed in the USA. Who knows what is going to be the deep impact of this in the future? What I know is that we have to be very, the universe is really, really not, what's the word? Condescendent. That's not what I want to say. The universe is really not a merciful place. If you make a mistake, you're out. And I think that the cure of this, as usual, is, well, I mean, I think that's the cure of everybody. Of everything is truth. I mean, it's to try to speak the truth, to try, or at least try not to lie. Like I openly say here, hey man, like I have a problem, and that puts me a step closer to not being consumed by it. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna win, but if I don't tell it to you, and I think that's something I always encourage people. It's like, find a good friend and just tell them the worst things about yourself, because when you say them, when you put them out of your mouth, they just become alive. They stop being dead inside of you. And perhaps it's something that will help us. But I don't know. In terms of the raising of my children, for example, like we it's just impossible to stop. But we kind of, to my son Sirius, we decided that he cannot see screens for the first year of his life. And so he practically has never interacted with a phone.
Look.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
If you can make it farther from 1 year, just do it.
Yeah, because I mean,
do it for as long as you can.
I think that again,
once it's on, is
yeah. Again, it's like people shield their own responsibility on the technology. It's like, oh, it's a technology, but no, it's your responsibility. Like, I think that a great deal why people are so obsessed about this from young age is because parents use this as a way just to distract the kids, and they just like can focus on something else. And then it's like, oh, how wonderful it is that they're sucking a cartoon and they're not paying attention to the world. But who's failing there? The internet? No, it's you. And again, it all comes down to personal responsibility. What are we going to do about it? Well, we just have to recognize the problem and move on and try to be better at this, because I'm unsure. I'm unsure if it's necessarily going to be doomsday, but it's worth thinking about it.
Yeah, we need to be prepared. We don't know what's going to happen.
Okay.
I did you ever read like there's like a joke, like, you know, if we start another war, don't worry, just throw them a lot of iPhones and that's it. You know?
Exactly, and they would just stay frozen there in front of the device.
Exactly. So basically, you know, when you read, this is difficult to explain, but McLuhan, he always, like, he was a visionary, and he said, like, look, the medium is the message. What he really meant is that we become the medium, all right?
Yeah.
The medium is an extension of our senses, okay? And by being, you know, it basically numbs our senses when this is so big, right? So we take all this information. It's just like we don't have enough brain to do this.
To process this.
We just don't have enough. You know, we can only take like 5 to 7 items in our memory, you know, and that's it.
Yeah.
So whenever we are talking here about this stuff and see how we are focused and we are connecting ideas, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful, because we are not distracted. If we were distracted, we will end, you know, who knows where.
In some Wikipedia article.
If I was like here, like, but also like seeing the phone and blah, 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 we wouldn't be having these amazing conversations. So basically, this is interesting, what McLuhan says. And I don't think I really understand it, you know, what he really wants to put out there. But it's basically saying, like, look, if we become this, if we are inside the bubble now and we don't see it, that's it. You know, we are having this conversation. We are having another podcast when there are, like, I don't know how many million podcasts there are now.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like we are all doing it.
Yes.
Right. And it's not something, it's just to satisfy our needs and, you know, and probably create an audience and, you know, just have something fun that we like doing. And we do it because it's easy. Maybe if it wasn't ready, we wouldn't be doing it because you're in Moscow and who is going to listen. Yeah.
I want to say something, but you know what's wonderful about these things, and things have meta meaning packed into them that we don't know when we arrive to them. We don't even know that that's why we're doing it, or we don't even know that that's what it's going to produce for us. And the only way to find out is to go and do it. That's one thing I want to say, and I will expand that in a second. And the second thing, a good advice I heard, I'm very enamored of Jordan Peterson's ideas, and I have enjoyed a lot going through his material. And one of the things I obtained from him is that it's very useful to do whatever everybody's doing. It's actually, people really think that, I remember I once heard this quote, I really don't remember from where, it's like, in a world where everybody's trying to be unique, the most revolutionary thing to do is to try to be like everybody else. And so I personally, and I'm going to tie this, I'm saying 2 loose ideas. And the third idea I have, and I'm going to wrap it all up in a nice little arepa, in a nice little Venezuelan potty here for us. Flatbread potty, you know, these 3 ideas. Let's recap. Things have meta meaning that we don't know until we don't do them. Secondly, everybody's trying to be unique, so perhaps a good idea right now is to be like everybody else. And third is that maybe because we know that there is something wrong with the way the internet is interacting with us and we are interacting with the internet, maybe it's really useful to make plans, like exercises. For example, sit down and talk with my friend Flavio without anything else for an hour, without being able to be distracted. So we call it a podcast. And then when then this connects with the other 3 points, because what happened is that I started a podcast not because of the other 2 points that I said later, that I wanted to be like everybody else, and not because I wanted to create a plan. So those things were revealed to me later, but it mattered that I crafted the plan, because then it produced me the situation in which I'm learning a lot, because I'm finally here focusing one thing for 2 hours. Finally, I haven't done this for 7 years. I really made to make a podcast because I'm open about everything. I'm a musician and I need to push my name outwards in order to expand my work. And that's what that was my rationale, you know. Hey, if I make a podcast, look, everybody's making a podcast. So if I make a podcast, then it's going to drive my name further. And I never imagined what I was going to discover once I started. And what I discovered, and then I realized that the reason why I'm doing this now is because it finally gives me the opportunity to learn without being shoot into a million directions. And it also gives me the chance to communicate with some people that I love. And then the byproduct of that, it's like what comes out of the machine that you would throw away which is in a conversation, usually it gets dissipated into the air and it goes away. Then you can maybe profit out of that. But those other 3 factors, I mean, and I want to say to the people listening, you know, that if we know that there's a problem, you know, what thing we could do is just to create a plan to stop it. And I always saw you, again, like that's one of the main reasons why I brought you here. I always saw you like a person who could make those plans, you know, like, and maybe you need to just give it a name, you know, this is the offline Sunday. And those things, though trivial they sound, they are not. They would really help you to get away from the automatic train.
Yeah. What is interesting is that some of ideas I came up with, you know, the more I read, the more I see that a lot of people have came to the same conclusion.
Of course.
For example, I call it like, we started doing this not very long ago, maybe a year ago, like this Sunday, Disconnected. But then like I was reading this book, Deep Work, I told you about last weekend. And I read that they were doing the Shabbat offline or something like that.
Yes.
You know, just like a Saturday thing, festivity. So basically, they came to the same conclusion. It has another name and but it's very interesting how at the end we need to go further, because maybe this is not the solution. If this is the first thing we encounter, it's just part of the thing, you know, it's the first response. But I think like collectively, the world is just because we've been through, you know, Facebook algorithm, Instagram algorithm, Twitter algorithm, blah, blah, blah. And they are toning it down already because they know they're not going to survive as businesses like that, because they are going to be legislated. I don't know if that's the word, but they're going...
Like publishers. They're going to be legislated like publishers.
Yeah, exactly. So they already knew that, you know, if we keep this business up until that moment, we are not going to survive. So we need to start, and all the algorithms start changing, and they are more about now doing what they should be doing, like embracing conversation and creating engagement between people.
Yeah.
Not just pushing another ad, you know. Of course, the ad is there, and look, the ad is there, and there's solution for that. Like YouTube, I don't have any ad. I pay the premium thing.
Yes.
And I just don't know how much time I'm saving just because I did that.
Man, I need to.
And
do
I'm valuing.
Yeah.
I'm valuing my attention a lot. Like you're putting, you know, your mouth the money where
your mouth is. Yes. Yes.
Exactly. So like if you're valuing your attention, which is the most important thing we have because it's limited, and that's the thing that I don't think most people know. Then, you know, it's going to give you more time. And if you start focusing on it and you're paying for it, it's just like, you know, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to focus on my attention. You're giving value to your attention.
It's priceless. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing, but look, not everything is bad, right? And
True.
For me, all the time I have now, and I'm creating all these new rituals. I'm drawing. To draw is amazing because you need to really, like, there's nothing else. right?
Mm-hmm.
There are some activities that when you do it, everything else disappears. If you climb, right? If you are a climber, everything disappears.
Yes.
If you are fighting another guy, everything is going to disappear.
If you play an instrument,
all these activities that, they are just going to make everything fade away. But the amazing thing is that you can actually learn to do all these things online. But that's part of the problem. So, a lot of people is looking like meditation apps, right? But what happens when you take your phone at 7 a.m. in the morning because you want to meditate? You have all these crap notifications. And even if you don't see it, they're going to be here in your back burner.
Absolutely.
Right? Like a weight on your shoulder. So I say, look, meditate, but don't use a fucking app.
Yeah.
Forget about the app. But these meditation apps are worth like billions of dollars. And it's like industry, like a whole industry to disconnect.
It's an app that doesn't do anything, right?
You better pay some. It's just convenient, right? Like you have it in your phone. They are very good. They can make you go where you want to go, but they have these downsides of things. Like, okay, look, still I open it and it's a notification from my boss or whatever, and that's going to bug you.
It's very fascinating how there is. I love this. It doesn't matter how much things. Let me start by the end of the idea. The end of the idea is that we are biological entities, and in the end, what gives us more points is biological things, not virtual things. Still, you can do whatever, you gain all the Instagram points you want, and you're a teenager. But when you get laid with the girl, that's still the top prize. And it doesn't matter if you're the mega billionaire CEO Elon Musk. When you get laid with Grimes and have a baby, that's where you find meaning, something like that. And so it seems our minds and our bodies have a disconnect in a little bit, in which we're trying to find that middle ground between what I don't even know to separate it like that. I don't think it's wise. I think in general is mind and body are a unity.
I think it's just we are monkeys.
Yeah. And we forget about it.
And this is the nature of the human being. We are monkeys, creative monkeys.
Yes.
Because that's basically our main difference is just being creative, right? We have language, we can communicate. Yeah, well, but the dogs do have that too. They can communicate with each other by smell, by other things, but they do it. So we are basically monkeys, and we think we can get out of this, but we can't.
Yeah, I find
because
that beautiful.
We are monkeys.
I find that extremely beautiful, and when you're like in an intimate situation with one's wife or something, like that's where really things come together. The online lives enhance us for sure. But I personally don't have a vision of some sort of robotic future in which we are like disassociated from this. And I really don't think that we're just going to load our consciousness into a machine or something. I just don't have. I don't think that, there are when you try to dress a dog into some sort of character, there is a point in which the dog just kind of shakes the clothes and just wants to continue being a dog.
Let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
Like I'm just making this up now. My dog. We have some. She's like super allergic, and we give her. We need to give her medication, and the medication is we wrap it under a pate, right?
Uh-huh.
That is another hypoallergenic stuff.
Uh-huh.
So whenever like she knows that she knows that if she throws the plate, because the plate is kind of standing on something, and she knows we are coming, like what's going on, and she knows if she barks, she knows she gets our attention. And I'm wondering, like, if is that her addiction, you know. Her
That's her
addiction
internet.
is push this button, throw this plate, bark to this guy, and I will get food, you know. And my food is just food, right? But it's, in our case, our food is attention, our food is social, our food is attention, our food is being entertained. This is our food. And we know we push this button and then we get that.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
we are happy.
Yes.
But it doesn't end, you know. And she, like our dog, she does this all day, every day. But we don't give up price all the time. But she does it anyway.
Yes. Yeah, because sorry, did you finish that idea?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have noticed that the thing that makes us happy is not the attainment of the goal, it's the feeling that we're walking towards it, and that's a different thing. For a great example is you graduate from university, which is the attainment of the goal, or your dog getting the meal, it's the attainment of the goal. And then in case you graduate of university and the day after you're seeking for a job in Starbucks, but what kept you motivating all those years, you think that it's the title, but what really keeps you motivated is to wake up and feel that you're moving towards somewhere. And your dog most likely obtains more by the action of asking you the treat than by the treat in itself. We have because I really have to let you go in 15 minutes according to my clock. Can you? I mean, this is a super turn of events.
Come on.
But I wanted to because in this podcast, I mean, people are going to be back a lot, so I'm going to have you here in the future. So we're going to continue philosophizing, which is my favorite part. When I met you, you were doing search engine or optimization for a company in London. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would like to hear two stories, kind of. The story of the website that you did in Venezuela, which will give us, because I also, with this podcast, I want to shed light in Russia and in Venezuela. And I want people to know that Venezuela used to be a country where you could do things. And then what kind of are you up to now, and what are you doing now, and how are you approaching to it? So let's start by the Venezuelan part. Like, what were you doing? You did something really cool in Venezuela that was really interesting.
Yeah, remember, I self-taught myself HTML, right? Just connecting to the beginning of the conversation. And I entered this startup, which was called locasea.com.
It's called like whatever.com. Yeah.
Yeah. And locasea.com, they did have a huge budget, I think they were giving like around $20 million, all in all, back in 1999. 98, 99. And, crazy story, and it was super cool. It was like being in that startup, being just in a place where all creative minds of everywhere were there from Caracas. And there were people from Maracaibo and Barquisimeto and other places. Mm-hmm. And we were all crammed in a small, office that was growing organically. So, okay, we are packed here. It was, what I remember, the smell. Uh-huh. Imagine all these pseudo teenagers there all day in the computer, for hours. Just like, imagine that, right? And all crammed in a place, with air conditioning and stuff. Everyone smoking, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I remember so much the smell. Well, whatever. And this office grew, then we have another floor, and then eventually we went to Parque Cristal, which is like a big modern building, and with a huge office with, I don't know, like 100 employees or something like that. And we were working, or we have offices in Miami, Barcelona, Madrid, Rio de Janeiro, whatever, in many places. But then, the dot-com crisis came, but I didn't get to that point. I was like, I started doing like my own thing. And of course, you start applying what you are learning in that place.
Yes.
And that's what I started doing. Someone noticed, and it was like, you're copying us and you're doing another thing, and I was like kind of a menace and blah, blah, blah. And then I went off. and I went off to do my own thing. And then Lo Que Sea basically crashes and it had no more money, etc. And I took one of their ideas, was some sort of a chat. It wasn't a chat, it was like a Facebook kind of thing. It was a social network. So they basically spin off, like their chat was very popular, and they spin it off in kind of a social network. And we took that idea and created a new thing called Pareonone.com. Mm-hmm. And that Pareonone.com was more like a matchmaking place, right? Like, so you can find your own half, your another half.
Pre-Tinder kind of thing, or not? Or it was not like Tinder, right? It was not like
no, it was like more social thing. And then we started doing that, and it was like the startup path was amazing. Was like, we have like 10 users today, and then the next week we have like 100, and then another 2 weeks we have 1,000, and then up to 60,000 that we managed to have. And we didn't know how to monetize this because there wasn't money for advertising because of the .com crisis. Mm-hmm. So, the big brands like, that used to put money there weren't putting money there anymore. Because the internet was something very different. And no one was selling things. It was kind of it was some sort of pyramid schema in the sense that, so these guys in the startup I used to work, they were buying advertising in MTV Latin America, right? A lot of money to bring people to the site to sell them banners, to sell banners to other advertisers. But no one was selling anything. We didn't have e-commerce, I mean, we did. We have like Amazon at that moment, and we have like some other like
Mercado Libre. Maybe was already there or not?
Maybe, yeah. So, but there was very little money at that moment for that. It wasn't like something big, and we have a lot of people doing branding, but no one was selling anything, And online advertising was expensive, Mm-hmm. It was expensive, a lot more than what it is now, at least for this kind of project. And so that was one thing. And then, sorry, I diverged.
That's cool.
We didn't have the money to make advertising in Pareonone. So we basically started putting together some parties, right? Some very wild parties.
Yes, that was legendary, man.
Yeah, and it was amazing. It was an amazing time. And we did make some money, but not really like big money. But this was interesting. And I always say, like, if we did this business in the US, I already
you would be you would be now talking with Joe Rogan, not with me.
Exactly, kind of. I don't know. It was interesting. It was really cool. So, for a time I did that. Then I did like a lot of freelance websites.
All of this in Venezuela, yeah? All of this in Venezuela, yeah?
Uh-huh. Yeah. And then eventually, I decided to go away.
I wanna pause it there. When you go away, people who are not Venezuelan, I want you to understand that yesterday there is a friend in common that we have, Flavio and I, that his name is Amiel, which was another of these entrepreneurs of the early internet in Venezuela, and he was saying yesterday to me on a private message, we had a country and it was ours. It was ours to take. There was a moment when this country was not this 1,000,000% inflation, no electricity, no water. And I made this parenthesis here because I want you guys who are listening this, who are not Venezuelan, to be able to pull together a thread, which is that all of us, like migrating birds, all of us in a point smelled that this was going to end like this, and we just took off immediately. And that takes me to that question: why did you leave Venezuela? This was what year? 2006, something like that. Because you had some successful enterprises and stuff. You were on a path, but
2007. 2007, and I was making so much money that I really doubted that I should go at that moment, because there was a lot of cash from the government, basically, going towards private enterprises and whatever. And, I was freelancing and I was like, well, you want this and, I'm going to short eggs. Oh, yeah, of course, take it. And it was like crazy. And I actually doubted. But I left because first, when I took the decision, it was because I was almost killed. I, I was with a friend. Her car was stolen in front of my house. We were basically pointed with a gun.
Yes.
And when they were leaving, they basically, asked for the keys of the car. They wanted the car. And asked for all the stuff, my wallet and blah, blah, blah. And I was in shock. I was in total shock. And I didn't move and I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. I was just in total blindness. And the guy was asking me to give him my wallet or something. I don't remember. No, I was like watching him. This is biology again, fucking me over. I was watching every movement. I remember the detail of the hand of the guy where he was moving his hand. I was like super laser focused, right? But in shock. And the guy was talking to me, like, don't look at me. But I wasn't hearing that.
Yes.
My friend, she just like gave me, así, un codazo.
Yeah, like a
boom.
punch. React.
I'm like, and I reacted and I just put my side down. And when the guys were going to, they turn on the car and they say, now turn back, like give me
your back. Just turn back to me.
Yeah. And I'm like, fuck,
this is it.
And I just turn back and I say like, and it's like, when I finally hear the car going, it was like coming back to life again. And that's the moment I decided, like, what the fuck I'm doing here? I have my fucking passport. I don't have to be living this. And, basically, I was living a very good life. I did have, like, all my friends, our bubble. But that thing, this is not the first time I was, pointed with a gun, but probably the most dangerous one. And I was like, well, I'm gone. And I decided to go and I left the next year. Basically, I graduated and left. I graduated very late because I was
were working
doing a startup. Yeah. I was doing startup stuff. Yeah. So yeah. And then I left. I did a kind of a small tour. I went to New York, came to Lisbon, to Madrid, and to London, and decided to stay in London. Well, it wasn't London, but it was Brighton, which is a southern city near London.
Yeah.
Well, near.
Yeah.
Like an hour in the bullet train. And then I decided to go to England for a while to basically improve my English, and that was it. And I don't know, like this is when I met you, because I didn't meet you before.
Yeah, I always heard about you, and it was in London where I met so many interesting cats that had left, because all of us left in a point. So I don't know. It seems like, I mean, to respect your times, it seems like we're going to talk about your projects of the present in another edition of the podcast. Are you really need to be on time?
No, we can do 10 minutes.
Perfect. So then you somehow focused on the travel world, right? And now, well, we find ourselves in this situation.
This is another funny story, because I went to London, I went through several interviews for TripAdvisor.com. Okay. I didn't have any connection to the travel or tourism or whatever. I just didn't. But as usual, I was experimenting. I did have a blog and I was posting things about Brighton, and I had a lot of people asking me stuff about Brighton and how can you live there, and how much money you need, and blah blah blah. And at the same time, I went to an interview in TripAdvisor London, and I was cut off at the end in the final interview because they say I didn't have moderation experience or whatever. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm going to just work in this stuff, and just going to try and make it. And then I left London and I came to Lisbon. And imagine Lisbon, difficult to explain, but Lisbon is such an amazing city. It's so unique and so particular. And I just arrived at the beginning of this is another crisis, 2008, 2009, yes. Beginning of the crisis. And Lisbon starts becoming a tourism boom, right? Airbnb make it happen. So basically, half of the city center was, fucked up, basically. And, a lot of money in Europe and nowhere to put it. So a lot of people incoming to Lisbon, new Airbnb, new stuff. And I started writing a blog about Lisbon and I was also learning because this is the interesting part. And I recommend anyone that, if you're going to do a podcast or whatever, don't do it for fame, don't do it yes. for money, don't do it for any of that. Do it to learn.
Yes.
Okay. I started doing the Lisbon website just to learn about the city. I was just writing, boring historical facts about the city, and combined with news like a new restaurant opened here, and it got traction very fast because there wasn't a lot of competition for the city at that moment.
It was in English or in Portuguese? Or in Spanish? In Spanish.
Yeah, and so we have the crisis. We have the Spaniards. They wanted to travel, but they couldn't go to London anymore or to Paris anymore because they didn't have enough money. But they discovered that this one was very cheap, and you will be treated like a king.
Yes.
For half of or a quarter of what it will cost in London, And so Lisbon started this thing, and my website took traction very fast. Like I think I did my first, dollar. We did maybe a month after I started writing. It was like 6-0. I still have it in my museum, in my personal museum somewhere. And it was amazing. And from that, I started doing like a system method to do the travel guides. And I started creating more travel guides and learning, always learning. So I took I took the plunge from my freelancer experience, my writing skills, and being in Europe, having established digital based economy, which was just starting. So I got all of that and put it together and started this travel guide. And then I started learning other stuff. And, up to now, I basically became a manager. And that's why I'm excited about the quarantine, because I'm not a manager anymore. I mean, travel was the first thing that was hit by this stuff.
Yes.
So in February, I already knew that this was going to be a bastard year, because I could see the numbers. And, because that people in February is booking for,
right.
June,
right.
July, August, and the numbers didn't match whatever from last year. And I just knew. So from then on, I just started creating another plan.
Another what? Another platform?
Plan.
Do you have it in action, this plan already?
It's coming together. It's a puzzle. That's the interesting part. Like, I think I posted it yesterday or something, like doing a new enterprise, a new venture is a puzzle with two halves, right? One half you do it yourself, the other half you discover with the audience.
Yes.
So that's basically it. So my plan is basically, I like this. I like what we're talking about. I like teaching. I think I have enough knowledge to teach other people things. Might not be super expert in some areas, but I think I can teach a lot of people to make money online. Whereas you're an artist or a writer or just someone with an idea. And I know with content, with content, a purpose, you can make it happen.
Yeah.
And this moment, it's like, what we were talking, we have one foot in one place and one foot in another from the internet and the pre-internet era. So right now, it's like everyone, up until now, we were like that. Up until now, we are now with two
feet in the internet, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because the offline world became contaminated.
Yeah, no, basically there's no other way to make a business grow right now.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, what people don't understand about crises is that crises are a grand redistribution of money. I mean, the money, well, in many cases, the wealth is destroyed. But I mean, like you said, with the 2008 financial crisis, this meant that the balance of money favored some place like Lisbon. So this is a moment in which all the industries that are affected by this, that money transfers that are usually going to them are going to be deposited somewhere else, and we need to stop being I don't know other word. I mean, no, I don't want to say we need to stop being weak-minded and think like, oh, poor me. We just need to really think fast and put ourselves ahead, because again, there is something called Darwinism that will just cut your head if you're not well standing. And this is an uber Darwinist moment. I mean, whoever is not ready for
it. And the thing with this stuff is that I've seen a lot of people complaining, a lot of people with, state daddy issues. And look, there's like, you need to make a plan. One plan is better than no plan. If you're going to be complaining, if you're just going to be whining or crying, you're going to be fucked up.
Yes.
This is your opportunity to take the life in your hands, take responsibility for your life, for your future, for your family, and make something happen. It doesn't matter what, but just make a plan and start. This is what you need. This is where most people get caught. Like, you just need to start and start creating something today, and you will see where it will lead you.
And also don't get attached to things, really, because by the way, my company, we have 3 physical studios, and I came to my partners and I said, we are going to close 2 of them right now before we even open. And so we did. We closed 2 of the studios, and my partners initially were like, man, but I love that place. And I said, you know what I used to love? Caracas. And you know what I used to love? London. And I'm in Moscow now. So we cannot get attached with things just because we like them. It doesn't mean that the market likes them. And it's most likely the opposite.
Yeah, it's better not take this kind of stuff personally.
No.
You just need to make a plan and move forward.
Yeah, and that's what this time is calling for. And we just gotta do that. All right, man, that sounds amazing. That sounds like a really great place to leave it there. It's been a wonderful conversation. I have enjoyed it a lot. We have to carry on, man. I'm really inspired by you, and I really cannot wait to see what's that new project. Can you say something about it, or it's still like?
Look, no, because I'm discovering. But basically, I'm just restarting with something. I've been writing on and off for this all these years. I used to have like Cosas Imposibles.
Mm-hmm.
And we even did like kind of a podcast thing, but personal stuff, talking about Bitcoin, remember?
Yes.
So I'm kind of putting that together, and I want to start and do something with that again. But I don't know what. I don't know how. I don't know if it's free, if it's premium, if it's paying. I still don't know. I'm just in the path to discover it. My plan is to actually launch one product before the summer ends, like a digital product.
Yeah.
This is like a long-form thing. and another very short in the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure yet. I just put it out there, see what happens, and carry on from there.
But I mean, are you going to launch a new site or something like that, or it's already out?
No, this is my personal website. I will keep just nurturing my personal uniqueness.
Yeah, man. I think that that's important in this day and age. Like, I mean, we are some sort of back to the medieval. You used to go to Giovanni Trapattoni's shoes. You didn't were going to a brand, and I think that putting your own name behind things gives them, your face and the solidity that they need. So I think that's a really great idea.
Man, before I leave, did I ever told you I have this primo tercero?
Third cousin?
Primo tercero.
Third cousin or something.
I don't know if it's, I was talking about, I have this friend and his grandfather and he's Italian and blah, blah, blah. And he told me, I flew with him. He was a very good pilot.
Marco Straziotta.
I'm talking about your grandfather.
Yeah, about my grandfather. Wow. But this is an old person, or maybe it's my uncle who he's thinking about. How old is this person?
I don't know. Well, he's 80.
Yeah, could be my grandpa. Yeah.
80, I think. 80, 81.
Back to entrepreneurship and problems. Imagine my grandpa migrated from Italy to Venezuela after Europe was ravaged, and he arrived to Venezuela. I mean, without nothing, and he went to Avenza, to the national airline, to one of the national airlines, to ask for a job as a pilot, and they gave him a job as a painter to paint the hangars. And he told me this story, which was like, I needed to find a job that will make me think a lot, so I decided to drive cars from Caracas to the outside of the city, so I can think a lot. And eventually he built a big empire. So this is again what I connecting with the idea of, in my case, making a podcast or something. You really don't know what the activity that you're focusing on is going to give you. And if you start by setting up those rules, that what do you think, and the layout, you're just going to fail, most likely.
Yeah. You need to think. You cannot. The instant gratification doesn't work.
Yeah, and also, perfect understanding. It doesn't exist. You only understand things as time progresses and things as things move forward. And whoever is out there, perhaps listening to this and thinking about what to do next with this COVID-19 situation and the new market that has been placed in front of our eyes. Certainly, the selfish goal is not the one that is going to reward you. It's the goal that is going to make you grow more. And if people find that useful, they will tune in, I think.
Yeah, of course. I think you don't need all the answers. You just need one plan.
Exactly.
You need to start it as soon as you can. And then, start to juggle all the balls and see where it leads you.
You wrote one of the most fantastic tweets I have ever seen in the history of Twitter. It wrote it last week. It was a thread which said, I open a thread on Twitter and tell you how to be an entrepreneur. And then I was like, all right, here we go. There's going to be like some 20 tweets. And then you see downstairs, start now.
The open rate of that tweet is super huge. It's super big. But it's ridiculous that no one retweeted or not one liked it. I don't know if people felt, betrayed or something, but that's the truth. That's what I wanted to make, That's the point I wanted to make. You just need to start.
Should we feel offended when people don't retweet things? I mean, not offended, sorry. Should we feel that the punch was not delivered? No, the punch. I was seeing your Twitter guide, and it seems like analyzing the reach is more powerful than the engagement. Yeah, because in the end, people saw it, right? Yeah,
and also like when you focus on this kind of stuff, you need to focus on engagement.
Yeah,
and not on the other metrics like how many likes, how many retweets. You need to focus on the audience because you are building an audience. You are not building you know, I don't know, circus. You're just not there to entertain everyone. Exactly. You're to entertain some people, not all of them.
Exactly, man. Awesome. Well, awesome, man. We gotta close this now. Thank you very much. This has been amazing. Let's carry on and continue doing awesome things. I will put all your links in the description, so everybody go and please check it out. And let's carry on towards the future, making better things.
Thank you, man.
Take care, man. It's been amazing.
Bye.